Previously on Part 1, we looked at the research conducted by Ridge to establish a management strategy for wild red deer in Queensland. Now let's discuss how best to improve and maintain herd genetic quality without losing the integrity of the original and historic Windsor Park bloodline.
Successfully implementing in Queensland is a quality deer management program. And there's three elements of any quality deer management program. Firstly, there's the restraint on the harvest of young male animals, because it's well known that the best quality antlers are produced by older animals. Secondly, there's the increased harvest of female deer, because we need to keep the sex ratios of deer in balance in order to produce those better quality animals. And thirdly, and most importantly, is a data collection program, because we need to be able to monitor and determine what our objectives have been are actually being achieved. One of the easiest and key pieces of information in the data collection program is the jawbone. Deer are a bit like people. They erupt their teeth in a fairly predictable way, and then once all those teeth have been cut through the gum, those teeth age in a fairly predictable way. So what we can do with the jawbone is age teeth with a high degree of accuracy. And in Tasmania, for example, where we've had over 5,000 jawbones produced by or delivered by hunters to the game management unit, we're able to look at age distributions and sex ratios and all sorts of things simply by the jawbone. And that's exactly what Ridge is trying to do in Queensland with the red deer.
If we discount some of these big trophy stags that have suddenly appeared in the record books over the last 10 years as released pen animals as what they are, and look at the true fair dinkum trophy out there, we'll see that the quality is still there in the Queensland animals, but it is slowly disappearing.
Who's got the biggest head, Granny?
Me. Poor fan. Oh, what can you say? I mean, you sitting back in the camp talking about things like that, and Queensland deer the way they are these days, you wouldn't think you'd shoot a head like this, but it's possible when you look at it.
Well, it sounds like the quality of deer that we started with are still here. If only we manage them right, we could have world-class animals right here in Queensland.
I'm here today to talk to Chris Zillman from the Imbil Museum and compare a couple of antlers with a great head he's got up on the wall.
This head, known as the Sullivan Trophy, was taken by Neville Stonier in the 1930s at the back of Kingham Creek.
Okay, if we compare this antler off this stag, this is a definite Queensland bloodline stag taken in the 30s. If we compare it with this antler, you'll see that there's some remarkable similarities. The front tine structure and the way it goes to the three-point crown, really exactly the same. This antler is off one of the first stags to be released from Werribee Park after the initial release herd that was put into the Queensland bush. Now this antler here, again when we look at it, it looks very, very similar. The top structure is almost identical, but this came out of the bush no more than 10 years ago. About 15 years ago, a good friend of mine bought about 50 spikers from a deer farm down near Crow's Nest. Now they're all pure Queensland bloodline animals. He took them home, put them in a pen, and he fed them the best feed available to see what they'd grow out to. The very best grew heads like this. You agree, they're a pretty fine example of a Queensland blood animal. He's rubbed his front points off fighting through the fence, but they would have been about that long. And this is one side of his heads from each year, from 7, 6, 5 and 4-year-old. I think you'd agree, if you saw that stag running around the bush, most hunters would shoot it at 4-year-old. Now, included in that mob of 50 stags at Ron's place, at 7-year-old, were some stags that never grew better than double 4. Some grew out to be quite reasonable double 5s and double 6s, and some were nothing short of excellent. There seems to be a practice in Queensland of shooting the best, most even stags that we can find, regardless of their age. Now, if we do this, and we take out this top end of the genetics, we're only left with this end to do the breeding. What is known as a bell-shaped curve is simply a way of expressing the difference between one end of the genetic scale of a certain species and the other end. These antlers all come off mature age animals, and they range from a 2-point on the left-hand side to a 9-point on the right-hand side. So many times over the years, you'll hear somebody say, I shot a little stag, but he was only a pencil head. Best to get him out of the herd. Quite often, those stags are only 2 and 3 year old. And okay, they might be very thin in their antlers, but there's nothing wrong with their genetics. This antler came off a stag known as Blade when he was 2 year old. Well, this is Blade at 10 year old. and he's sporting possibly the largest head ever grown in the Queensland bush. He's got 19 points, he's 48 inches wide and 42 inches long. And he's a terrific head. This footage was taken as we attempted to recapture him after he had been running free with a mob of wild deer for over 14 months after he escaped from a deer pen. Unfortunately, after he was tranquilised, he lay down awkwardly, upside down due to his massive rack, and he bloated, bled internally, and he died. There was nothing we could do at the time to save him. Although it was a sad loss, it showed us that red deer can grow massive, world-class heads on Queensland bush tucker if their genetics are right. Since then, fawns dropped out of wild hinds in that area have shown excellent style, with some spikers growing brow tines or multi-tine tops, and 2-year-olds with 10, 11 or 12 points on their first head past spiker. Well, if we want to explain the ridge system a bit more, what say we go back to the house and have a look at the computer system and watch out for those special effects. Okay, let's look at some footage that I've taken over the last couple of years of different stags, both good stags and cull stags, and look at them close up, and we'll point out some of the differences. This first animal here was shot by Mick Talbot last year, and he was running with 20 or 30 hinds, and he's an absolute cull.
Right.
So let's look at him closely now. Okay, here's a cull stag that Mick Talbot just took, running with a good herd of hinds. He's got the body size of a 2-year-old. Look at him, you could just about carry him between two blokes without a problem. Gut in, 3 by 4, a broken tine. Looks like he'd be 2 or 3 at the most. We open his mouth, we'll show you the jaw later on, but he's 8.5, 9.5-year-old. This thing is absolute junk. Never going to be any better than that, and it would be a sin to leave him with that mob of hinds. Well done. There it is, 105. Round the clock once and onto the 5. That's our stag, 105 kilos. Hot carcass weight with the skin, head and guts in. At least 8.5-year-old, maybe 9.5-year-old. We'll know better once we get his jaw out. Dead-eye Dick, what was that?
36.
320?
Maybe.
And behind the scone.
Better things to film around here than this.
You let go at him on the jog, 320 yards. Hit him in the head. Okay. You get the brownie points. Looks about 10-year-old. His main grinder there is worn right down to the gums. He's holding off those 2 beautiful double 6s there, those 2 3-year-olds. So he had to go. He's got too many females, and he was a double 4 last year, so I don't think he'd get any better.
Always be prepared.
If you haven't got a pen, use the tip of a 308 bullet.
Rain, well, it's definitely not raining today.
Okay, you look at these stags here, Belinda. You got a little spiker up here that's getting chased away by this mature stag. But when we look closely at this mature stag, we see that he's about probably 6.5, 7 year old. He's only a double 3. And if that's what he's going to be at that age, he's a cull.
Yeah, he's not going to get any better.
No, that's right. And he was holding a large group of hinds there, keeping all the young stags out. So we took this stag the next day. Now, often a really good place to look for a deer is around a wallow hole. When you find one like this, it's good to go and check out the signs, see what's been wallowing and the size of the tracks. And from here, we just moved around the side of the hill and we come across this cull stag. Hold him up, mate.
Make sure you tell everyone it's a cull, right? You make sure you tell everyone it's a cull. You told me it was a cull.
That stag's at least 8 year old. I'd say he's more like 10. By his teeth, his front teeth are worn right down. We'll have a look at his back teeth, but they look to be quite down too. So he's an old stag and he's tiny and just a sickle horn, so he's got to go. Here we had Brent Dancer from America. And Brent took this stag actually before he took a good trophy stag, a big double 6, that we saw earlier in the film. And we came across this cull stag, so I shot it. Yeah, you see this stag here, Brett, he's missing a trait tine. He's about 10 year old, little trait tine on one side, missing a tray on the other, and little bay tines. For a stag his age, he's very poor genetic stock. So the best thing we can do is get him away from those hinds. Now here we've got an obvious young stag. He's got high pedicles, he's got a light coloured body, and he's quite light in build. He's got thin antlers and very short points. So he's probably a 2 year old, he might be 3 year old, but I think 2 year old. And what I say to hunters is always be careful. You'll see a young stag like that, you'll be looking in a gully or into a patch of scrub, and often when you take the time to search, you'll find there's another stag there. Right. Often not making a noise, like this bloke. Now, when you get a chance to study him, you'll see he's got a dark body, he's got that broad grey face, he's got a big bull neck on him, and he's overall an old stag, and that's what you're after. Ruled this stag out of the scrub right on dark one night, Mark Brazier and myself. And for a start, he looked like he was a bad genetic animal, well, which I think he is anyway. But when we look closely at him, we can say, righto, he's got a medium-sized body and neck, so we picked him at around that 6 or 7 year old. But when you look closely at his antlers, one antler is hanging out to one side, and he's had a broken pedicle. This stag here is actually quite good for his age. I'd put him at 3 year old. He's got beautiful brow, bay and tray tines, but he's quite dumb. And this is what happens to many of our good young stags. They're silly, the other ones that wait around and walk down the sides of roads and they get shot. We promote to our hunters that they leave these stags alone. Let them go and let them grow. You can see he's got those really fresh young lines to his face. He's got a bit of a mane, but not a huge mane, and no dewlap, so everything points to being young. Right, now let's look at this stag. Straight away, if you said, okay, 6.5 year old plus, what else has he got? He's got the big broad face on him. He's got a dark body, and watch when he steps out. He's got those hook brow tines. He's got a dewlap under his neck. He's got a big dark body and mane. So straight away we can say he's older than 6.5, so he's definitely a trophy stag.
Now, when he walks up the hill, you listen to the way he roars. Big old roar on him. So you're quite confident then that that's an old stag, one that can be taken. Now this stag here, let's have a close look at him. You can see by his manner that he's not a big old mature stag. So if we again say 6.5-year-old, he's got high pedicles, he's got a broad face but it's still very youthful, he's got a good mane but he hasn't got that big bull neck on him, and a medium-sized body, so everything says he's under 6.5-year-old. I'd probably put him at about 5. Same goes for this one here. Look at him, he's got high pedicles again. He's got a medium-sized body and shape. He's not huge, and he's got thin antlers with reasonably short points. So again, I'd put him at 4.5, 5.5-year-old. But when you look at the top structure on his head, he's got terrific quality.
Yeah.
Now often you see trees that are rubbed up to 6 and 7 foot high on big trees, and you wonder, what did that? And often you'll find it's something like this. Big old 4-5, look at him, he's got heavy timber, he's got big tines and a big body on him, bashing up big trees, but he's not that elusive 6. Same with this one here. This stag was roaring really well in the gully, and when he finally did come out, it's hard to get a good look at him to determine his age. When he moved on the other side of the hill to do a parallel walk with another stag, you can see that he's got that sort of medium body shape, medium to large, so let's say over 6.5-year-old, and good length of antler, probably 33 inches long, but only a double 4. This is a stag he was parallel walking with, a big 4-5. This season I visited that same high, thick gully with George Court and John Woods. There were 3 stags roaring well in this gully. One had a deep, low growl, and he seemed to be moving ahead of the other ones through the thick gully. So we climbed really hard and high, right round the top of the gully. We got in position, and we could actually look down in the gully and see a bush shaking where the stag was rubbing a tree low down in the gully. Now after what would have been close to an hour, the stag moved his way around the opposite side of the valley, and George managed to get a sight on him and shot him with one shot.
He's just to the left of that. Look in there.
Shot George. What do you reckon, Woodsy?
That's a good stag, mate.
He looks good. He looks good.
Oh, wow. Oh, man.
It's a big double strike.
Wow. Look at the size of it. Golly! Hey, Woodsy. Look at the tops. My God, he's been thrashing. He's a magnificent animal. Fair income, mate, to get something like this after all those years. A boy from the bush, born in Burke, and graduates to get something this majestic. Geez, it feels good. Serves him right for shooting the damn thing in the first place.
I told him to shoot the little one. Now the difference between rub trees is often huge. And this stag here is rubbing a tree that's no thicker than your finger. When you look at him, he's got a beautiful head shape on him, but he's only 3-year-old. He's got a little quiet roar. He's got nice shaped tines, but they're still quite thin. And a lot of potential, tons of potential. You can see here he's got the high pedicles. He's got a real youthful face on him. thin antlers, everything points to him being young. Unfortunately, this young stag walked out on near a main road the next week and one of the local louts shot him.
Yeah, what a shame. That's a real waste of potential. Well, this one here, you can tell it's quite obvious. He's got a bit of age on him. He's got those hooky brow tines and nice big body.
Yep. No, everything points with this stag to him being old. He's got a dewlap, a big dewlap under his neck, hooky brow tines, you know, the shape, everything says old. So again, if we said 6.5, then everything says plus. So 7.5, 8.5.
Yeah.
I'd put this stag in that 9 to 11 year range.
Right.
He's that old, he's got cobwebs.
Yeah. So were you calling this guy up, Clark? How close did he get?
Yeah, we gave him a couple of roars and he came for probably about 2 kilometres straight at us, up the hill. And he got to about, probably 6 or 7 metres from us. But he couldn't just work out what we were because we were low down in the grass.
Sure, and what time of day was that?
Mid-morning. Yeah, this is about, 9:30, something like 10 o'clock. And look at this young stag. He's bashing up a tree, having a lot of fun, down on the flat, beautiful shape and style. But when truth be known, he was only 4 or 5 year old. Excellent genetics, got a bigger stag. An old cull had actually pushed him out of the herd, and he was down there where he was, where it was possible that he would get shot by somebody that didn't judge him properly.
Yeah. Well, he's the type we're trying to protect.
Definitely, definitely. Now, quite often, Belinda, in the off season, like June, July, you'll get quite big mobs of stags running together, like this one.
Right.
But when you take a bit of video footage of them, so that you can get in this position and freeze frame it, right, you'll see that there's no evidence of tops on most of these stags.
And they look quite old.
Yeah, actually, there's quite a bit of age on those stags. 1 or 2 of them, younger stags, have got a little bit of top point, a bit of structure, but most of them are culls. Now this is where we lose a lot of our young stags every year. People going out shooting for meat and they shoot spikers.
Yeah.
And then they're the same people that complain later on and say, where have all the stags gone?
Yeah, there's no quality.
Yeah, no quality and no stags. They've shot them all when they're younger. If somebody is going to shoot a spiker for meat, what we ask is that they leave the better style and they take out the weaker one. Yeah? And that is quite obvious when you get a little bit of time to study. Now, this stag here was seen by probably 6 or 7 Ridge Group members 2 years ago and left because they judged him at about 5.5 year old, which turned out to be correct, and he's a beautiful double 5, but not a really classic shape, but still quite good. Now you see the stag here, a lot of people see that he's just roaring, but see the way he's curling his nose up? When you look closely at him, he's actually using what they call his vobro-nasal organ. Right? So he's actually here checking the hind urine on the ground for estrus, and that's one of their techniques of being able to track down which hinds are ready to mate.
Right.
This stag was left alone, and 2 years later he was taken by a Ridge Group member, Sandy Spradlin, from America.
Sandy Spradlin and her husband Bob bought a hunt donated to SCI by Debbie and I in conjunction with the Ridge Group. Bob couldn't make it, so Sandy came in his place, and was that lady tough? We hunted hard for 3 days during an extremely humid week of weather on one of the balloted blocks. And the stags weren't roaring much at all, but she didn't give up. Although he hadn't been seen for over a year, I felt sure this stag was still around, so we put a fair bit of time into him. And late one afternoon, we were rewarded. Right on dark, the stag came out of a thick gully, and she took him.
Hey Bob, I really did it. He's a good one.
This is our world. This is our wild country.